The courtroom fell into absolute silence as the mayor's wife leaned forward, her diamonds glinting under the harsh lights like sharpened blades. This wasn't a minor parking dispute. This was $2 million Australian fraud case, and she was losing. With a smile that never touched her eyes, she hissed loudly enough for every microphone to capture it. "You think this little courtroom scares me? My husband will have your job by Monday." Judge Judy didn't react, not even once. Instead, she reached beneath the bench and slid a single manila folder across the desk toward the mayor's wife. It struck the surface with a sharp crack that sliced through the tension. "Open it." The mayor's wife hesitated, then complied. The color drained from her face. Her diamond-ringed hand began to shake. The confident posture she'd strutted in with crumbled within seconds, because the file wasn't about the fraud case. It was about her. Bank transfers, hidden accounts, a name she believed she'd buried 6 years ago. And in less than 30 seconds, a woman who thought herself untouchable realized she had threatened the wrong. Judge with the right evidence, the echo of the file's impact still lingered as every camera swung toward the mayor's wife, as if the lenses themselves sensed blood in the water. She didn't breathe at first. Her perfectly sculpted face stayed frozen, but the tremor creeping up her ringed fingers told the truth. She hadn't expected this, not the file, not its contents, and certainly not the look on Judge Judy's face. A look that made it clear the game had already shifted, and she was the last to see it. A low murmur spread through the audience like a tide changing direction. Even the bailiff glanced sideways, aware of the power shift. Moments earlier, she had entered as if the courthouse belonged to her. Now she looked like a woman standing over a trapdoor she never knew was. Beneath her feet, she snapped the file shut with shaking force. "This is fabricated," she spat. "A stunt. A television trick. None of this is real." Her attempted confidence flickered like a candle in a storm. Judge Judy didn't blink. "You're welcome to explain which part is fabricated." The mayor's wife opened her mouth, then closed it. The words dissolved before they could escape. Her lawyers shifted uneasily. One rubbed his forehead, the universal signal of unpreparedness. The plaintiff, a young contractor with calloused hands and exhaustion etched into his eyes, watched her unravel in stunned disbelief. He had arrived expecting another humiliation. Instead, reality had finally cracked open. "Your Honor?" Her lead attorney stammered, "We object to the introduction of there was no introduction." Judy cut in, her voice clean and sharp as steel. "The witness requested it. I simply allowed it." The mayor's wife turned slowly, shooting a venomous glare at her former assistant, the same assistant now seated in the witness area. Hands clenched tightly in her lap, refusing to return the stare. Fear radiated from her like heat off pavement. "You little do not finish that sentence." Judge Judy snapped. The courtroom fell instantly silent. The mayor's wife swallowed hard, the diamonds at her throat catching the lights like warning sparks. Judge Judy continued, her tone calm and professional, the kind that signaled danger. "We are going to proceed, and we are going to do it properly." She gestured to the clerk. "Call the first witness." The clerk nodded and moved toward the side door. The hinges groaned softly as it opened, and the room seemed to exhale, bracing for whoever would enter. Judge Judy watched the mayor's wife closely. Her shoulders tightened, her jaw set. Whatever confidence remained vanished the instant she saw the silhouette in the doorway. Her voice cracked for the first time that day. "No, not them." The witness stepped fully into the light, and the color drained completely from the mayor's wife's face, as though she were staring at a ghost. The figure hesitated for a brief moment, just long enough for the courtroom to feel the weight of the truth about to enter. Then she walked forward with careful, deliberate steps, like someone carrying a secret too dangerous to keep and too heavy to release. the mayor's wife. Stiffened not, a subtle flinch, but a full jolt, as if an invisible string had been yanked along her spine. The witness was small, soft-spoken, almost unremarkable at first glance. But trauma has a way of carving stories into posture, and hers told entire chapters. It was her former financial assistant, the same woman the mayor's wife had fired 2 years earlier. Without severance, without warning, without mercy, Judge Judy studied the mayor's wife's reaction closely. "State your name for the record." The assistant's voice was quiet but steady. "Marissa Dale." "Ms. Dale," Judy said, "you worked for the defendant for 3 years, correct?" Marissa nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. And why did your employment end?" The question lingered in the air. Marissa glanced briefly at the mayor's wife, who shook her head almost imperceptibly, a silent threat. Marissa took a slow breath. "Because I asked too many questions." A ripple of murmurs moved through the courtroom. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters leaned forward. "What kind of questions?" Judge Judy asked. Marissa swallowed. "About the invoices, the transfers, the inconsistencies." The mayor's wife slammed her hand on the table. "Lies. She was incompetent." "Sit down," Judy snapped, her voice dropping like a hammer. The mayor's wife froze. Marissa continued, her voice shaking but resolute. "She told me to change dates on invoices to adjust amounts. When I refused, she said if I valued my safety, I'd stay quiet." The room went still. Even the air seemed to pause. The mayor's wife's jaw clenched so tightly her teeth clicked. "This is absurd. She's making it up, Miss Dale." Judge Judy interrupted. "Did anyone else witness these requests?" Marissa hesitated, her fingers twisting together until her knuckles turned white. Then she nodded. "Yes." The mayor's wife snapped her head toward her. "Don't you dare." "Who?" Judge Judy pressed. Marissa's breath trembled. "There were emails, and someone else was asked to do the same. Someone I worked closely with." Judge Judy's tone sharpened. "Give the name." Marissa closed her eyes as if pulling courage from somewhere deep and bruised. Then she said it, a name that split the courtroom like a struck match in a dark room. The mayor's wife went white. Not pale, not shaken. White because the name wasn't merely familiar, was dangerous. Someone who should never have been connected to her again. Judge Judy leaned forward. "And what is this person's connection to the defendant?" Marissa's voice dropped to a whisper. "They were hired under her old identity." The moment she said old identity, the temperature in the courtroom didn't just fall, it collapsed. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. The kind of expression only seasoned viewers and terrified defendants ever noticed. The mayor's wife felt it instantly. She stiffened as if struck. "Old identity," Judy repeated, her voice calm but cold enough to frost glass. Marissa nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. She wasn't using the name she has now. Not back then." A tremor rippled through the mayor's wife's polished exterior. Her pearls suddenly felt too heavy. Her diamond bracelet pressed cold into her skin. She shot Marissa a look that wasn't just threatening, it was pleading. But pleading wrapped in arrogance never resembled humility. It looked like panic wearing a disguise. Judge Judy saw it. Every bit of it. "And the person you mentioned," Judy continued, "what role did they play?" Marissa clasped her hands tightly. "They were a private investigator hired to track vendors she claimed had stolen from her. But in reality, they were used to create fake invoices and shift the blame." The plaintiff frowned, confusion carving into his exhausted face. "Wait, so the fraud didn't start with my company?" Marissa shook her head gently. "No, this went deeper. Much deeper." The mayor's wife slammed her palm on the table again, but this time it wasn't anger. It was fear, raw and uncontrollable. "You don't get to talk about that," she snapped. "None of this is relevant. Judge Judy's response cut through the room. Ma'am, you don't get to decide what's relevant in my courtroom. The mayor's wife froze cornered, rigid, trapped inside a designer suit. Marissa continued carefully. The investigator kept files, logs, notes. He documented everything because he didn't trust the payments he was receiving. He believed she would eventually cut him loose and pin everything on him. A heavy silence settled over the courtroom. Like dust in a room no one dared disturb. Judge Judy leaned back slightly, weighing the pieces as they began to lock together like a puzzle the mayor's wife had never wanted solved. And you're certain these records exist? Marissa nodded. I saw them before I was fired, before she changed her name and started over. The mayor's wife inhaled sharply, too sharply, as if the mask she had worn for 6 years finally split down the center. Her voice came out thin, trembling at the edges. You have no idea what you're talking about. You weren't supposed to. She stopped herself, but it was too late. Judy raised an eyebrow. Weren't supposed to what? The entire room leaned in. The mayor's wife swallowed, but the knot in her throat didn't move. Her attorney subtly nudged her ankle beneath the table, a desperate plea for silence. She couldn't stop. The fear was too loud now. That private investigator, he's gone. You won't get anything from him. Judy's gaze hardened. Gone how? The mayor's wife clamped her mouth shut. Marissa stared down at her trembling hands. Your Honor, I submitted something to the court before the hearing. Something I didn't include in my statement because I wasn't sure it was safe. Judy motioned to the clerk. Bring it forward. A new file thinner, but heavier inconsequently across the bench. Judge Judy opened it. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly. Then she looked at the mayor's wife, freely looked at her. Judy tapped the folder once. Ms. Dale, tell the court why this investigator was hired under the defendant's other name. The mayor's wife swayed slightly, as if a truth buried years ago was forcing its way back to the surface. The clerk set the folder down with a soft thud, but the sound echoed through the courtroom like a body hitting the floor. Judge Judy didn't open it right away. She let the silence tighten around the mayor's wife's shoulders, squeezing with every passing second. When Judy finally lifted the cover, the fluorescent lights flashed across the contents-printed emails. Bank screenshots, carefully looped signatures. Exhibit C, the defendant blinked rapidly, as though hoping the pages might blur into something harmless. They didn't, Ms. Dale. Judy said, scanning the documents. These signatures match the defendant's handwriting. Exactly, Marissa replied, her throat tightening. Yes, Your Honor. She used 2 signatures at the time, one under her legal name and one under her previous identity. The mayor's wife's composure shattered like porcelain in the cold. That's not my handwriting. Anyone could have, ma'am, Judy cut in sharply. You're a terrible liar. Rippled through the audience. Cameras whirred like hungry insects, capturing every angle. Judy lifted a page between 2 fingers. This contract, dated 6 years ago, bears your old name, the same name linked to the offshore accounts we've already seen. The mayor's wife's attorneys shifted uneasily, their expressions flattening into that universal look of impending defeat. Judge Judy turned to the plaintiff. Mr. Harland, please describe what happened when the payments stopped. The young contractor stood slowly. His voice carried the fatigue of a man who had been battling shadows for years. I lost 4 employees in 1 month. I had to sell my truck. The delays almost cost me my house. He paused, glancing toward the mayor's wife. And the whole time, her office kept insisting it was my accounting error. The words landed heavy. Even the cameras seemed to inch closer. Judge Judy turned back to the defendant. Would you like to explain why funds meant for this contractor were routed into an account under your former name? I don't know. She swallowed hard. I've never had another name. Judge Judy's eyebrow rose slowly. "Are you sure you want to die on that hill?" The mayor's wife's breathing quickened. Her diamonds no longer sparkled. They looked like restraints. Judy tapped Exhibit C with a single manicured finger. Because Exhibit C contains a state-issued name change, court-stamped and signed 6 years ago. The room lurched. Her lawyer's eyes widened. Marissa closed her own, bracing for the fallout. The plaintiff froze mid-breath. The mayor's wife stared at the document as if it were written in a language she had prayed would never be spoken again. That's not mine," she whispered. "It's your signature," Judy replied evenly. "Your birth date, your social security number, your photograph." The defendant's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her entire Fakata Pearl's posture privilege collapsed like soaked paper. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice soft but deadly. "Ma'am, would you like to try that lie again?" The mayor's wife sprang to her feet, shaking her head, her hands, her entire body. "I don't have my never had us," she stopped. Her voice disappeared, her expression hollowed out. She slammed both palms on the table and screamed. "I do not have a maiden name." The courtroom froze. Denying something so basic meant only one thing. She wasn't just hiding money. She was hiding who she was. Her scream lingered in the air, vibrating through the room like a cracked bell that refused to quiet. Judge Judy didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply watched the panic spreading across the mayor's wife's face, the realization settling over her lawyers that the illusion was no longer defensible. Every glittering diamond on the woman's body losing its shine. "Sit down," Judy finally said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of something carved in stone. The mayor's wife's legs gave way as she lowered herself back into the chair, her breathing rapid and shallow. The courtroom remained silent, except for the faint rustle of someone shifting nervously in the gallery. The plaintiff stared, stunned and confused. Marissa fixed her gaze on the table, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Even the bailiff seemed frozen. Judge Judy lifted the name change document from Exhibit C and slid it closer. "Every person in this room has a maiden name," she said calmly, "unless they were never born with the name they now claim." The defendant's jaw tightened, but her eyes, wild, unfocused, betrayed her. Judy pressed on. "Would you like to explain why a legal name change was filed under the name Ellen Morrow 6 years ago? With your photograph, your identifying information, and your signature." The mayor's wife shook her head violently. "You don't understand. Then enlighten me." Her throat worked as she struggled to swallow. She glanced at her lawyers, but they offered no rescue. Their eyes stayed on the desk. One quietly closed his briefcase, as if preparing for a silent exit. Judge Judy continued. "The court needs to know who you were. Because right now, we're seeing who you are, someone willing to lie about her own name." Tension rippled through the room. "I had reasons," the mayor's wife whispered at last, her voice breaking. "Things you don't know about. Things I had to run from." Judy leaned back, studying her. "We all have pasts. But pasts don't usually involve fake invoices, offshore accounts, rerouted funds, and hiring investigators under fraudulent identities." The mayor's wife squeezed her eyes shut, tears threatening to spill not from remorse, but from the terror of being cornered. "I changed my name because I had to," she said quietly. "Because Elena Morrow couldn't survive in this world." Judy nodded slowly. "And yet Elena Morrow is still very much alive on these documents." The woman's hands shook so violently, her rings clinked together like tiny wind chimes. "You have no idea what that life was like." "Then tell us," Judy pressed. "Tell us why Elena Morrow disappeared." But the mayor's wife said nothing. Silence consumed her. Her lawyers exchanged a look that said she was about to break hand, There was nothing they could do to stop it. Judge Judy closed the file gently, but the sound echoed like a steel door slamming shut. "We're taking a 10-minute recess," she announced. Then she fixed the mayor's wife with a stare sharp enough to cut diamonds. "Don't go far. We haven't addressed the offshore accounts yet." The mayor's wife flinched the way only a guilty person does when the truth lands too close. As she rose on unsteady legs, clearly thinking she could escape to the hallway, Judge Judy added without breaking eye contact, "and bring her back immediately after recess. We'll be reviewing the 2019 ledger next." Unaware her microphone was still live, the mayor's wife whispered, "No, not that one." When recess ended, the courtroom didn't relax, tightened, like a rope pulled from both ends. The mayor's wife returned to her seat with the fragile grace of someone pretending not to fall apart. Her makeup was freshly applied, but it couldn't hide fear. Her eyes were swollen at the edges, her posture brittle, every movement revealing cracks she could no longer conceal. Judge Judy re-entered with the file already in hand. "We're resuming," she said. "Bring forward the financial analysis." The bailiff delivered a thick packet bound with a black clip. Inside were charts, wire transfer confirmations, and a digital trail that cared nothing for status, wealth, or who someone married. The mayor's wife's breath caught as Judy flipped to the first page. Ms. Morrow. She froze. The name slipped out naturally, instinctively, because it was who this woman truly was. Alina Morrow, the identity she had abandoned but never escaped. The defendant recoiled as if struck. Judy didn't apologize. Funds from city disbursement schedules were transferred into accounts in the Caymans, numbered under both your current legal name and your previous one. "That's not possible," she whispered. Judy raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting these banks falsified your information?" Her silence answered everything. The plaintiff leaned forward slightly. His expression wasn't anger, was something heavier, sadder. The realization of how deeply manipulation had been weaponized against him. How small he had been made to feel by someone who had everything. Judge Judy continued. "We have matching timestamps showing that on 3 occasions. Funds left the city's development account and appeared in yours within 48 hours. The mayor's wife shook her head, frantic. "No, I didn't do that. I didn't move anything." "Someone must have hacked, ma'am," Judy interrupted. "You really should stop talking." A few people in the audience snickered quietly. The defendant whipped her head toward them, eyes blazing, but she no longer had the power to intimidate. Power without credibility is just noise. Judy turned to Marissa. "Miss Dale, you said earlier that others were asked to adjust records." "Yes, Your Honor," Marissa replied. "And those adjustments usually aligned with the offshore transfers." The mayor's wife snapped. "This is a setup. You're all conspiring against me because of who I'm married to." Judge Judy let out a dry, unimpressed breath. "If you believe your marriage grants you immunity, you have a very uncomfortable 20 minutes ahead." The defendant slumped, eyes darting wildly. She looked like a cornered fox, realizing the hounds weren't stopping. Judy motioned to the clerk. "Bring me the 2019 ledger." A hush felt the kind of hush that sinks into bones. The mayor's wife's composure shattered like glass. Her lips parted. Her pupils widened. She mouthed something small, desperate, and her microphone picked it up. "No, not that one." Gasps shot through the room like sparks catching dry wood. Judge Judy's head lifted sharply. "Oh," she said, her voice chilling in its calm. "So there is something in the 2019 ledger you don't want us to see." The mayor's wife's face drained of all color. The bailiff stepped forward, carrying a thick, worn ledger. The mayor's wife whispered one word under her breath, barely audible, but enough to ripple through the courtroom. "Please." No. The 2019 ledger hit the table with a heavy thud, not loud, but final. Like the sound of a door closing behind someone who will never walk out the same. Judge Judy didn't open it immediately. She let the moment settle, letting the mayor's wife feel the gravity of the book her own hands once filled with numbers. Lies and shortcuts disguised as accounting. The courtroom held its breath. Finally, Judy flipped open the cover. Dust rose off the first page, dancing in the harsh white lights like ghosts refusing to stay buried. Mo, Judy said, the name cutting through the air like a scalpel. This ledger is handwritten. The mayor's wife's eyes widened, and unless someone forged your handwriting on 2 separate continents and somehow replicated your exact slanted cursive. Judy continued. We have a problem. A muffled snicker echoed from the gallery. The mayor's wife turned sharply, ready to lash out. But the fear in her eyes choked the words before they could form. Judy turned the ledger toward the camera. Rows of numbers, notations, and circled dates filled the pages. Neat at first, then sloppy. The handwriting told its own story, confidence degrading into panic. Explain this. Judy ordered. The defendant swallowed hard. I don't know what that is. Of course you do, Judy shot back. This ledger documents city project payments, all of which conveniently align with the plaintiff's missing funds and the deposits into your offshore accounts. The plaintiff leaned forward, jaw tightening. So while I was losing everything, she was, please don't finish that sentence, Judy said gently. I'll do it for you. She tapped 3 entries with her pen. Each tap echoed like a drumbeat. Here, here, and here. Judy looked directly at the mayor's wife. You rerouted his payments to accounts you controlled 3 different times. Judge Judy said, her voice cutting through the courtroom like steel. And you documented it in your own handwriting because you thought no one would ever see this ledger again. The defendant's lips quivered. I didn't reroute anything. I only signed off what my staff advised. Ma'am, Judy said sharply, the numbers do not lie. But you do poorly. The audience exhaled collectively, a sound they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Judy flipped another page. The mayor's wife jolted upright, as if slapped. This page was worse. It showed not just rerouted payments, but personal withdrawals, with dates and times cross-referenced to her travel records. Her signature appeared 17 times. The mayor's wife whispered, her voice breaking, "Where did you get that?" Judy didn't look up. You left it behind when you changed your name. The defendant sagged, her body folding in on itself. For a moment, she looked decades older, stripped of entitlement, pretense, and the armor she had believed money could buy. This ledger, Judy continued, isn't sloppy bookkeeping. It's a confession in ink. She closed it with a soft snap that sounded like the crack of a gavel. Call the next witness. The clerk nodded and moved toward the side door. The hinges groaned as a figure stepped into the doorway. A city employee badge glinted on his chest. He looked terrified. The mayor's wife inhaled sharply. He wasn't supposed to be here, she whispered. Judge Judy fixed her with a steady gaze. Sir, please come forward and tell the court what you know. The mayor's wife slumped in her chair, whispering brokenly, This is all falling apart. The man walked forward like someone approaching a cliff he had tried not to see for years. Each step was small, timid, but inevitable. His youth betrayed by worry carved into his face, his badge catching the fluorescent lights with every trembling breath. He clutched a stack of papers against his chest like both shield and burden. Judge Judy nodded to the bailiff. Swear him in. Once seated, the staffer swallowed hard. My name is Daniel Harper. I work in municipal finance. The mayor's wife's gaze narrowed to slits. You lying coward, she hissed. Barely audible, but the microphone caught every syllable. Judy didn't even glance at her. Mr. Harper, you will speak freely. No one in this courtroom will intimidate you. Understood? He nodded quickly. Yes, Your Honor. Good, then tell us what you came here to say. Daniel's fingers trembled against the papers. There were requests from her. He nodded toward the mayor's wife without daring to meet her eyes. What kind of requests? Judy asked. He exhaled shakily. Transfers, manual overrides, emergency reimbursements for repairs that never happened, and instructions to reroute funds to accounts that weren't tied to any official city department. Murmurs erupted. The cameras zoomed closer. The mayor's wife's voice cracked. He's making this up. He was a temporary hire. I've been there 6 years, Daniel said quietly, eyes dark with something like shame. You used me because I was new enough to be afraid and loyal enough to obey. Judge Judy pressed gently but firmly. So you followed her orders? He nodded. At first, until I realized the money wasn't being used for city purposes. And what made you realize that? Judy asked. Daniel's throat tightened. The names on the accounts. They didn't match any city officials. They matched her. Judy tilted her head slightly. Her current name? No, he whispered. Her old one. The mayor's wife inhaled sharply, the sound slicing through the silence. And how did you learn what her old name was? Judy asked. Daniel wet his lips. She slipped. Once. During a meeting. A vendor questioned paperwork, and she snapped. She yelled. Alina didn't make mistakes. The room froze. Daniel's eyes darted up, haunted. And that's when I learned Alina Morrow wasn't a different person, was her. The mayor's wife's shoulders rose, trembling. Panic pulsed through her like visible electricity. Judge Judy folded her hands. Mr. Harper, did you bring evidence? Daniel nodded and placed the papers on the bench. These are internal memos, requests she sent, and notes I kept because I was scared. I didn't know who to trust. Judy scanned the top sheet, her expression tightening, subtle but unmistakable. Mr. Harper, she said, her voice dropping to a grave tone, was the mayor aware of any of these transfers? Daniel's face drained. He hesitated, breath caught. The mayor's wife stared at him, eyes wide, silently begging him not to say the words already forming in his throat. Judge, he whispered. Every camera zoomed in. The mayor didn't just know. The mayor's wife shook her head violently. Daniel, don't, he helped her. Daniel said louder this time. He approved the transfers. A wave of gasps burst through the courtroom. The mayor's wife slammed her hands onto the table. You traitor. Judge Judy's gavel cracked through the noise. She pointed her gavel at the mayor's wife. You just implicated your own husband with that outburst. The mayor's wife froze, realizing she had, and every camera captured it. The moment Daniel said he helped her, the air in the courtroom didn't just shift, it detonated. Gasps collided. Reporters scrambled for better angles. Cameras lunged forward as if hungry for the chaos unfolding in real time. Even the judge's bench seemed to shiver under the weight of what had been spoken. The mayor's wife sat frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes flickering like a glitching screen. She looked unreal, almost wax-like, caught between fear, denial, and something far more primal. The terror of losing the shield she had relied on more than she ever admitted. Order. Judge Judy commanded, pounding her gavel once. The echo snapped the room into tense, breathless silence. Judy turned to Daniel. Mr. Harper, are you telling this court that the mayor of this city knowingly approved fraudulent financial transfers? Daniel nodded, his voice cracking. Yes, Your Honor. You're certain? Yes. The mayor's wife erupted. He's lying. He's lying to save his own skin. My husband doesn't know anything about this. He never approved anything. This is a political hit job. Stop talking. Her attorney hissed under his breath. But she couldn't. Panic had severed the last threads of control she had left. Judge Judy's stare cut through the room like a spotlight from above. "Ma'am, another outburst, and I will have you removed." The mayor's wife gripped the edge of the table, knuckles bone white. "My husband is the mayor," she said, voice trembling. He would never risk his career for something so small. Judge Judy arched a brow. "Small? You believe $2 million of taxpayer and contract funds is small?" She flinched. "That's not what I..." Judy held up a hand. "Enough. Sit down." The defendant collapsed into her chair, shaking, lips pressed into a thin, furious line. Daniel swallowed. "Your Honor, there's more." The mayor was involved in reviewing communications about these transfers. Judy frowned. "What communications?" He hesitated. "Emails, texts, memos, the ones she sent." The mayor's wife let out a strangled sound. "Those were deleted. They were all deleted." Judy turned slowly toward her. "Ma'am, how would you know that?" She froze. Too late. Her attorney closed his eyes like a man watching a slow-motion car crash. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Let me get this straight. You're claiming the emails and messages you allegedly didn't send were deleted?" The gallery murmured. The mayor's wife realized her mistake too late. I just assumed. I meant. Someone probably no," Judy said, shaking her head gently. "You meant exactly what you said." She raised a hand toward the projection monitor beside her bench. A blue login screen flickered on. "Mr. Harper," Judy said, "those communications you reference were copies ever sent to your department server." He nodded. "Yes. And do we have access to them?" "Yes, Your Honor, they were forwarded this morning." The mayor's wife's entire body went still. Still in a way no actress, liar, or polished socialite could fake. Judy tapped her gavel softly. "Then let's take a look." The screen glowed brighter, illuminating the mayor's wife's pale face like a spotlight catching a fleeing criminal. The first message loaded. The mayor's wife gasped. On the screen was her own name, followed by a sentence she never thought anyone would see again. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the projection screen brightened, casting cold blue light across every stunned face, especially hers. She stared at the glowing monitor like it was a guillotine blade suspended inches above her neck. Her jaw slackened. Her hand drifted instinctively toward her throat, clutching the diamonds that suddenly felt more like a noose than an accessory. On the screen, in crisp digital clarity, sat the message header, "From El Morro to Office of Municipal Finance. Subject, transfer authorization." The room inhaled as one. Judge Judy read aloud slowly. Deliberately, each word carved from stone, pushed the payment to Alter Holdings. "We'll reclassify the contractor invoice later. Just make it disappear. L." The mayor's wife squeezed her eyes shut as if that could erase the glowing evidence. "It's COULDN, single quotes." Judy turned to her. "Would you like to explain this?" That isn't." "I didn't write." She stumbled over her own excuses like a person tripping over broken glass. Judy raised her hand. "Before you embarrass yourself, let's continue." A second message loaded. This one was worse. "If he keeps pushing, make sure he understands what happens to people who challenge city leadership. Tell him the mayor can make problems vanish. Don't put my name on anything." Gasps exploded. Reporters' fingers hammered their keys. The plaintiff slumped slightly, stunned by the cruelty of the words directed at him. The mayor's wife reached toward the screen as if she could physically stop the truth from spreading. "I never said that. That message is doctored, fragmented, false." Judge Judy cut her off. "The metadata confirms it was sent from your home router at 11:42 p.m. from a device registered to your old name." The defendant's mouth hung open. Panic had taken shape, sharp, jagged, frantic. Someone hacked me. Someone set me up. Judy wasn't swayed. We haven't even reached the worst one. The projection flicked to the third message. The room stiffened. This one wasn't about rerouted funds, it was personal. Judy's courtroom is a powerless TV circus. She won't touch me. My husband won't allow it. The mayor's wife's face drained of color. For the first time today, her arrogance didn't just crack, it shattered. Judge Judy pressed her lips into a thin line. A powerless TV circus. Her voice was calm, too calm. The mayor's wife stammered. I didn't mean it was a joke, just frustration. I didn't. Judy leaned forward. Ma'am, you've spent the better part of this hearing trying to intimidate my staff, my witnesses, and this plaintiff. But you might consider the possibility that the person you should be most afraid of is yourself. She tapped the monitor. Next message. The clerk hesitated. Your Honor? This one was originally redacted, unredacted. A bar of solid black vanished from the screen like a curtain rising. Beneath it appeared a name tied to her false identity, her offshore accounts, and her old life. The mayor's wife's lips parted, trembling. No, that can't. That file was destroyed. Judge Judy didn't blink. Miss Merrow, she said calmly, care to explain why this message was sent to your private investigator? The name on the screen glowed brighter than the rest, as if the courtroom lights themselves were leaning in to stare at it. Recipient, a Catan. Private investigations. The room fell into a dense, suffocating silence. You could hear fabric shift, breath hitch, even the soft mechanical hum of the ceiling lights overhead. The mayor's wife didn't move. Couldn't, her entire body locked in place, eyes glued to the name she had spent 6 years burying. The muscles in her jaw fluttered in tiny spasms as her pulse pounded visibly beneath. The skin of her neck. Judge Judy's gaze sharpened. Miss Morrow, who is a Catan? The mayor's wife swallowed, but the movement stuck halfway down. She looked at her lawyer, at the floor, anywhere but at the judge. He was just a contractor, an external consultant. Judy lifted a brow. A consultant you instructed to fabricate invoices and reroute funds. The defendant's throat tightened. No? Then why? Judy continued. Does this message show you approving payments to him under both your current name and your former name? Her breath quickened. Because that was years ago. I didn't. It wasn't. Judge Judy tapped her pen. Miss Dale testified that this private investigator kept notes, logs, evidence of your actions. The mayor's wife's composure faltered like collapsing scaffolding. I don't know anything about logs. Judy turned her head slightly. Really? Because this message says otherwise, she read aloud. If your notes ever surface, remember who signs your checks. I will not hesitate to disappear you, just like I disappeared Alina M. A collective gasp erupted through the courtroom. The mayor's wife's eyes snapped wide, tears welling with a terror no amount of diamonds could hide. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean disappear like that. Like that, she cried. I was scared. He was threatening to expose. Judge Judy raised a hand. Are you saying Mr. Catane threatened you? The defendant froze. Not a twitch. Then whispered, No, he didn't threaten me. He warned me. The room shifted. Even the plaintiff leaned forward. Judy's voice lowered. Warned you about what? The mayor's wife's breath hitched, shaky and thin. Her eyes drifted to the blinking cursor on the screen like it was pointing at her conscience. Your Honor? He found something, she whispered. Something from my past, from before Alina Morrow. He said it would ruin me. Judy watched her unravel one thread at a time. And what did you do? She asked softly. The mayor's wife's hands trembled so violently her rings chimed together. Her voice cracked open. "I pushed him," she whispered. The courtroom froze. "I pushed him too hard, too fast, too far. He was old. He was sick." Her breath trembled. "He had a heart attack the night I demanded he hide the transfers. He died in his office." A shiver rippled through the gallery. Judge Judy's voice went quiet. "And you blamed yourself." Tears welled, spilling down her cheeks in trembling lines. Her shoulders sagged. For the first time all day, she didn't look arrogant or furious. She looked broken. "Yes," she breathed. "It was my fault. I've been running ever since." Her lawyer touched her arm, but she didn't react. She couldn't. Judge Judy sat back, watching the law's work unfold in real time, revealing the truth behind the diamonds. The mayor's wife lifted her eyes, hollow and defeated. "He died because of me," she whispered, "and everything I've done since that night was just to outrun the guilt." The room went still. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Then it's time," she said gently, "for you to stop running." Her confession didn't explode. It exhaled fragile, devastating, settling over the courtroom like a soft layer of ash after a long-burning fire finally gives out. For the first time that day, the mayor's wife didn't look like the glossy figure from the news headlines, nor the polished political spouse who glided through charity galas. She looked stripped bare, human, haunted. She dabbed at her cheeks, but the tears kept coming, carving thin, shimmering paths through her foundation. Her diamonds, once hard, perfect symbols of wealth, seemed to shrink against the tender shaking of her hands. Judge Judy didn't speak. She didn't need to. Silence in that moment was the most powerful witness in the room. The plaintiff watched her with an expression caught between anger and something much softer, the quiet understanding of another person's breaking point. The mayor's wife inhaled shakily. "When he died, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I thought it would go away if I changed my name, my hair, my life." She gave a small, broken laugh. "Turns out, guilt doesn't care what name you choose." Her voice thinned to a whisper. "I told myself I deserved a fresh start, that I had worked hard, that I had rebuilt myself honestly. But then the money got tight. The pressure grew, and one shortcut turned into another and another." She blinked up at the ceiling as though searching for forgiveness in the lights. "And soon, the lies were the only truth I had left. I wasn't stealing to get rich, Your Honor. I was stealing to stay afloat," she whispered, voice trembling. "To keep the life I'd built after ruining someone else's, I couldn't admit. I was still that frightened girl making desperate choices in a tiny office somewhere." Judy's tone softened, not sympathetic, but steady, grounded. "Running from yourself is a marathon. No one wins." The mayor's wife nodded, shivering. "I know. But once you start lying, it becomes the only language you know. I lied to my husband, to my staff, to my own reflection." She pressed a hand over her mouth as a sob escaped. "I lied so long, I forgot how to tell the truth without it hurting." Even the courtroom felt its reporters paused mid-keystroke. Witnesses held their breath. "I didn't want to drag the mayor into this," she whispered, "but he asked questions. He wanted explanations. And instead of telling him the truth, I pulled him in. Little favors, little approvals. I told myself he'd never get caught. I convinced myself I was protecting our future. But really, I was protecting the past that could ruin me." Her voice cracked, thin as tissue. "I wasn't a monster. I was ashamed. And shame makes monsters out of anyone." Judge Judy leaned forward, hands folded, not judging, assessing, understanding the psychology without excusing it. Softly, she said, "Every lie, every scheme, every fraud, all of it was built on one night you never faced." The mayor's wife nodded slowly. Judy's gaze held steady. And what do you think accountability looks like now? Her eyes swept the courtroom, the plaintiff she hurt, the assistant she intimidated, the staffer she manipulated, the cameras that once adored her and now demanded truth. Her voice was barely audible. I think it looks like... She exhaled, raw and exposed, lifting her eyes to Judy. Ask me whatever you need. I won't run anymore. A heavy hush settled over the room. Judy nodded once. Then let's begin, she said. Start by telling this court what else you forged besides invoices. The mayor's wife's breath caught. There was something else, something worse. Her inhale was sharp, audible across the courtroom. The kind of breath someone takes standing on the edge of a truth they never meant to face. Judge Judy waited. The mayor's wife didn't. She crumpled. Not physically. Not yet, Judge Judy observed, but emotionally, mentally. In that quiet, devastating way where the spine softens and the eyes lose their last flicker of defiance. The mayor's wife's shoulders slumped inward, her hand hovering near her mouth as though trying to keep the remaining lies from escaping. You said, Judy repeated gently, there's something else you forged. What was it? For a long moment, the courtroom held its collective breath. You could hear her thinking, the grinding gears of guilt and self-preservation clashing in a fierce, private war. Her rings clicked together as her trembling fingers finally whispered, letters. Judy's eyes narrowed slightly. Letters. She nodded. Recommendation letters. Sign-off letters from inspectors. Authorization letters from City Hall. Her voice shrank further. Most of them were never signed by the people whose names appeared on them. The plaintiff's expression hardened a mix of disbelief and sorrow. You forged city approvals. Her gaze met his, stripped of hostility, stripped of pretense-only regret. I told myself it would speed things up. Help the city avoid delays. But really? I just didn't want anyone questioning the projects connected to my husband's office and the invoices. Judy pressed, she nodded. Those two. And the signatures, all of them. Whispers erupted through the courtroom, shock, fury, vindication. Even the bailiff shifted, jaw tightening in controlled disapproval. Judge Judy raised a hand. Silence snapped back like steel. The mayor's wife continued, voice cracking as she peeled back the layers she had buried under diamonds and privilege. I forged until I lost track of what was real. I lied until the truth felt smaller than the lies I had built. I hurt people because it was easier than facing what I had already done. Her eyes flicked to Marissa, the assistant she had fired without mercy. I ruined your career, she whispered. You tried to help me. I punished you for it. Marissa swallowed, unsure how to respond. Then the mayor's wife turned to Daniel, the staffer she had manipulated. I used your fear against you. I'm sorry. Daniel blinked, stunned, conflicted, wounded. Finally. She looked at the plaintiff, the man whose life had been collateral damage in her spiral of shame. You didn't deserve any of this. He held her gaze, searching for honesty. For the first time, he found some. Judge Judy inhaled, letting the weight of the moment settle. Ms. Moreau, she said, you've built an entire life on a foundation of fear. Shortcuts, and the belief that accountability wouldn't dare knock on your door. Judge Judy said, her voice steady, measured. The mayor's wife nodded, tears streaming freely. I know, she whispered. And yet, Judy continued, you're still here, finally facing it. The defendant closed her eyes not in defeat, but in surrender. Your Honor, she said softly, I don't expect forgiveness. Not from anyone in this room. I can't keep pretending. Not after all this. Her voice cracked. I'm so tired. The courtroom felt it, a collective empathy, a hushed acknowledgement of exhaustion and human fragility. Judge Judy leaned forward, hands clasped. Ms. Moreau, she said, voice calm but carrying the weight of steel. "Before I issue my ruling, you have the right to make a final statement." The mayor's wife stiffened, a tiny spark of terror returning. A final statement. Her last chance to speak before her entire life was judged. Judy's voice dropped to a near whisper, weighty beyond any gavel strike. "What do you want this court and the world to know before I rule?" The mayor's wife lifted her head, tears glimmering, breath trembling, ready to release the words she'd avoided for years. She rose slowly, as though lifting herself from wreckage rather than from a chair. Every movement was hesitant, heavy, painfully human. She pressed both hands flat on the table, steadying herself against a storm only she could feel. The diamonds she had flaunted that morning now looked dull under the courtroom lights, as though even they were ashamed to shine. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, raw, stripped of every layer of armor she had worn her entire adult life. "I spent years trying to control how the world saw me," she began. "Perfect wife, perfect leader's partner, perfect everything. Because if people thought I was perfect, maybe I could forget the parts of me that weren't." Her eyes drifted toward the projection screen, still frozen with her damning messages. "Instead," she continued, "I built a life out of lies. Lies I convinced myself were small, that they didn't hurt anyone, that they were necessary." She shook her head, tears pooling again. "But every lie I told became another brick in a wall I couldn't see over anymore. I didn't just hide my past, I buried myself under it." The courtroom was silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. She inhaled shakily. "My husband. He doesn't even know who I really am. I told myself I was protecting him from the truth. But the truth is, I dragged him into a nightmare he didn't ask for." Her voice cracked. "He trusted me, and I used that trust to hide behind." She turned to Marissa, the assistant who once feared her. "You didn't deserve what I did to you. You were loyal. You tried to help, and I repaid you with fear." Marissa's eyes glistened. Then she looked to Daniel, the young staffer, trembling in his seat. "I stole years from you. Years you'll never get back." Daniel blinked hard, jaw trembling. Finally, she faced the plaintiff. He braced himself, unsure what was coming. "You worked. You struggled. You built something with your bare hands. And I took from you because I thought I could fix my mistakes without anyone noticing." Her chin quivered. "And for that, I am sorry. Truly, endlessly sorry. I forgot you were a person. I'm sorry." Her words hung fragile in the air. The plaintiff nodded once subtle, understated but profoundly human. Judge Judy studied her, weighing sincerity against shame, truth against desperation. "I can't ask for forgiveness." The mayor's wife continued, wiping tears that refused to stop. "I don't think I deserve it, but I can tell the truth now all of it, and I can accept whatever comes next." She straightened slightly, as if rediscovering a spine long bent by fear. "I didn't come here today to be humiliated. I came to win. I thought I could scare, manipulate, or outsmart everyone in this room." She swallowed hard. "But now, I just want to stop lying. I want to stop running. And if this is where it ends for me, then at least I finally told the truth." Slowly, she sat. A single tear slid down her cheek, landing on the polished wood table like a tiny final confession. Judge Judy's expression didn't soften, but it settled, measured, and unwavering. The courtroom held its breath, suspended in tension. She lifted her gavel, eyes fixed on the trembling woman before her. "Then let's bring this to a close," she said. "It's time for my ruling." Silence fell, absolute and heavy, waiting for the judgment to descend.